What if I told you that there's a better way to take notes? In today's video, I'm going to introduce an amazing program called Logseq that has not only completely changed the way that I think about note-taking, but has effectively supercharged my ability to be organized and productive at work. Let's jump into it. What is Logseq? Well, Logseq is what's called a personal knowledge management application, or a PKM for short. And that's basically just a software tool that works like a second brain, assisting you with 4 increasingly complex aspects of note-taking: storing notes, retrieving notes, organizing notes, and connecting ideas. In my experience, if you're looking to take good notes at work or at school, you're going to want a PKM that's good at all 4 of these things. In fact, every single time that I've failed to build a good note-taking system in the past, it was because I've settled for an application that can't do all 4 of these things well. To understand what makes Logseq so spectacular at these 4 aspects, I want to compare it to some examples of other apps that I've tried that have fallen short of this standard. Oh, and for context around some of my decisions here, just noting that I'm a working professional and that I sit in back-to-back meetings all day long. In these meetings, I capture meeting notes, tasks, ideas, important decisions, project updates, and more. Some days it's like drinking from a fire hose, and having a good system to take notes is important to me. That said, let's start with level 1, storing notes. The very foundational requirement for a personal knowledge management system is that it can store notes in some form. Right off the bat, this is why I'm disqualifying popular task management apps like Apple Reminders, Todoist, and Microsoft To Do from any consideration as a good PKM for my needs. Technically, it is possible to put notes into some of the tasks in these task management apps, but none of them are good for notes, so they don't even make it to level 1. And don't get me wrong, these are great apps for task tracking. I just won't use them for knowledge management, and they don't fit into my work productivity systems. I also unfortunately have to exclude anything cloud-based from consideration, things like Google Drive or Roam Research, because my company doesn't allow any confidential information to be stored on the cloud. Your needs may vary. All of these exclusions aside, I'd probably put Microsoft Word into this bucket, and yes, I've seen people use Word as their note-taking software. You know who you are. Word can be technically used offline, and it's fine enough if all you need to do is store a few notes. As soon as you add multiple documents or you need to find something though, you're going to find that Word just doesn't stack up to a real note-taking application. Logseq, on the other hand, is also a completely offline solution, meaning nothing is stored on the cloud. And it's incredibly easy to add information to it. The creators actually tout it as an offline-first, privacy-focused tool that does not share your notes with the internet. With Logseq, you can easily store notes, manage to-do lists, save images, annotate PDFs, and so much more. Logseq also supports markup languages like Markdown and Org Mode if you're into those things, although knowledge of those is not strictly required. Oh, and at least at the time of recording, the app is completely free and available for Windows, macOS, Linux, iOS, and Android. Let's move on to level 2, note retrieval. Storing notes is all well and good, but how does Logseq stack up when it comes to retrieving notes? Well, like many other personal knowledge management systems, Logseq does have a search feature, and it's incredibly fast, and you can use it to search your entire graph, which is Logseq's equivalent to a notebook or a workspace. There are other personal knowledge management systems out there that have decent search as well, like OneNote. And to be honest, I don't think one app has a huge advantage over the other in terms of search. There are some features that we'll get into later that do give Logseq an edge when it comes to retrieving notes, but the real advantage starts to show when we get to level 3, note organization. You see, with OneNote, all of the notes have to be organized manually into notebooks, sections, and pages. This is satisfactory if you have a lot of time and not a lot of notes, but in a fast-paced setting like at my job, it quickly becomes unsustainable. For example, imagine that you have a morning meeting where different project managers give you different updates about all of their respective projects. Where would you store those updates in a OneNote? Would you create a page for each day's morning meeting and take notes as each manager delivers their updates? Or would you have a page for each project and update that page with the notes? And what if the speakers change subjects rapidly, or the notes could potentially fit onto more than one page? Do you try to click around really fast to get everything onto the right pages? Do you implement putting the same piece of information in multiple places? Do you scramble to take notes on one page and then set aside time later to organize them? What happens if you don't have time later? What happens if you get too behind and you never go back and organize your notes? Does your whole system fall apart, leaving you overwhelmed, filled with existential dread, and crying while laying face down on the floor next to your desk because it's 8 p.m. and the rest of your family is downstairs having a movie night, but you don't have time to go because you're too behind on your notes? I mean, you could certainly try to create a process that addresses these issues, but you'd be working against OneNote. Logseq is the opposite. It's designed at its core to work with you in situations like this, not against you. And that's because it's self-organizing and data is connected together in the same way that a human brain is, as opposed to a traditional file and folder organization system. To show you how Logseq self-organizes, first we have to get it installed. Head over to logseq.com and download a copy, and then install it. The first time you open Logseq, it'll prompt you to choose a folder to store your notes, and then Logseq will create your first graph. Again, think of a graph as a unique notebook or a workspace. And that's it. Once your graph is created, you're ready to begin. The first time you open your new graph, you'll notice that you've been brought to a journal page for today's date. This is on purpose. The creators of Logseq recommend that you just start typing your notes into your journal page each day, and just to let Logseq handle the organizing for you. We'll see how this specifically works in a moment. But first, I also wanted to note that Logseq is what's called an outliner. This means that everything in Logseq is written in bullet points. Each bullet is called a block, and the block is the atomic unit in Logseq, and it's a very important concept that we'll get more into later. But what's important for you to know now is that you can indent by pressing the tab key, and unindent by holding Shift and pressing the tab key. Indentation will associate every child bullet with its parent. This is also going to be important a little bit later, but hold that thought. By the way, you may have noticed that I've oh so conveniently left another wonderful offline note-taking app called Obsidian out of this conversation so far. Obsidian is honestly another really good PKM, and I like it a lot. The main difference between Obsidian and Logseq is that Logseq is meant to be an outliner, and Obsidian is not. The notes in Obsidian are, by default, in normal paragraph form. In my experience, that Logseq is an outliner by default reduces the friction of data input that I feel with Obsidian, and just makes it easier for me to just jump in and start taking notes without thinking about it too much. To me, this gives Logseq the edge. Okay, so now it's time to see why organizing notes with Logseq is so much different. As we've been chatting about Obsidian, you may have noticed that I've been entering the notes from my morning meeting. This is the first step for my workflow. I just open Logseq and just get some data in there. In fact, as we keep talking, I'll go ahead and get the next business day in there too, so we have 2 full days of notes. Each of the project managers in my meetings are talking about their projects, and they're going through their updates quickly. Remember, with OneNote, we struggled to plan out where that information should go. But with Logseq, we don't have to think about it at all. That hesitation to figure out where the notes should have gone is called friction, and friction is what causes note systems to fail for me. As soon as I get too busy, the system breaks down, and the amount of work it takes to get it going again just becomes insurmountable. So now that we've started to use Logseq to take our daily notes, let's now suppose that I need to prepare a report on one of the projects for my boss, and I need all of my notes from one of my project managers about it. One way I could find that information is the traditional way, through searching. To do this, click the magnifying glass at the top and start typing in your search. Logseq has a very fast search. When there's a topic or a concept or a project that I'd like to come back to again, I won't just use the search though. Instead, I'll create a new dedicated page for that concept. One way to do that is to type the name of the concept, such as Project POS here, into the search, and then click the New Page option at the top. From the instant that this dedicated page is created, Logseq will start tracking any reference to the title of that page. To see these references, click the arrow next to Unlinked References. What's cool here, and one of the benefits of taking my notes on my daily journal, is that I can not only see my references to this project, but I can see what days that I made them, and it's tracked automatically for me. And notice too that the child blocks that are indented underneath are included in the summary as well. Hopefully, you can already start to see how I might use these references to prepare my report for my boss about this project effortlessly. Next, I'm going to head back to the daily journals though and show you an even faster way to manage your pages. When I'm taking notes, I want to move quickly, and this means I don't always have time to click the search and manually create a page. So you can also quickly create pages by adding double square brackets around your text, and Logseq will automatically create a page for that text if it doesn't already exist. And then clicking on any of the links will bring you to that page. One additional benefit of doing it this way is that you'll have these references show up in the linked references section instead of unlinked. I prefer this section so that I can look for items that I intentionally link to this page. This also gives you the benefit of filtering the references to find specific information. On this page, I could filter to see a specific time range, for example. So now that we have some pages, let's start working on that report for our boss. She wants to know the project goal, the key milestones, the progress to date, and the next steps for the project. Some of this we can just go ahead and type. By the way, I like to bold my headings using Markdown. As I type in some of the key milestones, I'm also actually going to link to future journal pages, and they're going to show up for me as reminders on the day of when I open this in my daily journal, which is really nice. Then we get to the progress to date and the next steps, and as you can see below, I've already typed that information once into my daily journals. And a good practice when dealing with data is to only put the same piece of data in one place. If you recall, this was a problem that we had with OneNote. In OneNote, we would have had to copy and paste this information onto multiple pages. Instead, with Logseq, I can copy the reference to the block from my daily journal and then paste it on this page. When I do that and press enter, I'll see the reference text, and you'll notice that it links directly back to the original source. This makes it quick and prevents rework. I also want to mention while we're here that there is a third way to create pages. Instead of double brackets, you can also use the hashtag. In Logseq, both of these methods work the same way, the double bracket and the hashtag, but I prefer to use the hashtag only for statuses. For example, I'll make the project status here delayed. By doing this, I can access easily any project with that status. But at the end of the day, how you use these pages is up to your own personal preference. Another thing that I want to mention is that Logseq supports all kinds of plugins. I'll probably make a separate video about some of my favorites, but I do want to showcase one today. If you click on the jigsaw puzzle piece and then choose the Marketplace button, you can explore all the wonderful plugins that are available. Today, let's search for the plugin called To-Do List and install it. This will install an icon in your top menu bar that has a little check mark in it. I love this plugin because it ties in with the next feature that I want to show you, to-do lists. Do you remember at the beginning of the video when I rolled out task management apps like Todoist from my work productivity system? Well, that was actually because Logseq has its own that ties really well into my workflow, and I prefer to keep everything in one app. Let's head back to today's notes and pretend that I have an action item that I need to complete that I learned about in my meeting. By typing the / key and the word to do, I can create a block with a checkbox that represents an action item. Also, take note that this task will also appear in my checklist when I click on the plugin we just installed. This is why I love this plugin so much. If I want to remind myself about this task on a future date, do you remember the trick that we learned earlier where we could link to the future journal page? Well, you can do that here too. A quick way to do it is with another / command. If you type / and search for the date picker command, this pops up a calendar and you can select a date to link to. I prefer to do this versus typing it. To-dos also will alternatively let you use / commands called scheduled and deadline to assign dates to your tasks, but I just prefer to use the date picker and reference the page directly. Instead of typing to do, I wanted to also call out that you could call your action item doing, or click it to change it back and forth between to do and doing to assign a status. And if you prefer, there's also the now and the later flavor of this that you can use if you prefer that instead. Checking the box in either your journal or your to-do list will clear that task from your list. You can even assign a priority to the tasks with slash commands A, B, or C, and these will be filterable in your to-do list too. It's pretty neat. Personally, I just keep it simple and I use to do for everything, and then I check it off as I go. But I love that Logseq is flexible if you do have more complex needs. So thus far in Logseq, I've opened it up, I've started typing notes, and I've created a few pages as a result. Let's say that I want a quick way to jump to a specific page that I will reference often. Maybe a page, let's say, that lists all of my projects so that I can access them quickly. I might even want to link to the project statuses to quickly see which projects are in those statuses. Well, I can accomplish this by simply creating the page, clicking the three dots in the top right corner, and choosing Add to Favorites. You'll see that it will appear in your left pane. Speaking of panes, another cool feature in Logseq is the right side pane. You can hold Shift and then click on any link to send it to the side panel. I typically send my daily journal over to the side panel, and then I can click around and find information in my notes in the main panel as I need to as well. And also just wanted to note that you can edit your daily journal directly in that right side pane. It is not read only. The last thing that I want to talk about before we move on is a feature called templates. It's possible to select a parent block and its children and give that group of blocks a name. For example, here's a template that I typed out for my daily journal. I always want to capture notes on meetings, notes, and tasks. I'll create a template by right-clicking and choosing Make a Template. I don't want the parent to show up in my template, just those children, the meetings, notes, and tasks. So I'll uncheck that toggle that asks whether you want to include the parent block. To make this template show up every day in my daily journal, I'm going to head on up to my settings and click Edit config.edn. Then I'll scroll down to line 23 and put the name of my template in between the quotation marks. I named mine Daily Template, so that's what I'm going to put here. Now, every day when I open my journal, my template is going to pop up. I also use the templates feature in another way. So I'll head over to demonstrate this to my project page, and I'll create a template for every new project page that I create. Notice that it has markdown and links to pages and everything included. Same steps as before, I'll make a new template, and this time I'm going to call it something to do with my projects. Now when I head over to my project pages as I create them, I can type that slash command and template to trigger the template command. Logseq is going to prompt me to pick the template that I want to insert, and then my template will magically appear. I use templates for project pages, meetings that always have the same agenda items, and more. It's a super useful feature. I mentioned earlier a fourth quality to a good personal knowledge management system, and that's the ability to connect ideas. As I mentioned before, Logseq does this the way that a human brain does, by associating related ideas. To see this, click on your graph view. You can visualize the pages that you've created and start to see how they all come together. I don't really use this feature very often in my workflow, but I absolutely see the value in being able to see patterns, trends, and connections in your notes. I see this as being incredibly helpful for writers, students, and researchers especially. Okay, so we've gone through all four of the qualities of a good PKM, and I've shown you how Logseq applies them all. Now to summarize and kind of put it all together. I supercharged my productivity and organization at work by first ditching all the other software that couldn't rise to the challenge. Then, I simply installed Logseq and started typing all of my important notes each day into my daily journal. Now, as important topics arise that I want to revisit, I create pages for them. Within those pages, I used the linked references to my daily notes and organized them in a meaningful way by using block references. For items that need a status, I use hashtags. For action items, I use to-dos and tag them with important related dates. I also use the plugin that lists my to-dos to see them all in one place and to check them off as I complete them. Finally, I use saved favorites, the search feature, the graph view, and the sidebar to access my notes on the fly and connect ideas together. With this workflow, I have a simple, frictionless way to enter notes, retrieve and organize them, and visualize related ideas. Do you use Logseq? Let me know in the comments how your workflow compares to mine. I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Also, if you found this video useful, please consider leaving a like. It really does help. Thanks, and hey, I'll see you in the next one.